I know this is a little bit of an unusual circumstance, moving the tip time up 6 hours, but just is there anything different that you do in terms of preparation for a situation like this?
No, nothing different. I'm actually glad that as an organization we value everyone's safety, and the fact that even the Wizards could agree upon something like this to try to play a little bit earlier to get ahead of the storms for everyone's travels. It was the right thing to do. So looking forward to an afternoon game. We've had them before. We practice actually at noon, and so hopefully our guys are able to have that same routine, that same mentality to get ready for a game as we would for 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. It doesn't matter. It's an opportunity to get better. It's an opportunity to compete versus a really good Wizards team.
You've played them twice this year. I know they look a little bit different now than they did in those first two meetings. Ended up maybe starting slow in the first two games and then kind of taking over in the second half. Is there anything different you need to do in terms of the start that you weren't able to do those first two meetings against Washington?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the first time we played them in Washington, second night of a back-to-back, started slow. They play really fast. They play really aggressive and free and physical. And I thought that we did a great job as the game went on of getting more physical, trying to disrupt some of their main creators. And that last game at home, same type of thing. They came out, they played fast, they played well together, they have great off-ball movement. And then again, we kind of worked our way into it. So hopefully tonight, I thought last game in Orlando, we did a much better job of coming out, starting the game with the right amount of defensive intentionality, and offensively, we got back to, I think, our brand of basketball. The ball movement was really good, and that helped create some better shots, and then we were able to knock them down. So looking forward to our group being able to kind of try to stack another good start after what we just did in Orlando.
Defense has gotten a lot of the headlines lately, but you guys have the lowest opponent free throw rate in the association so far. How have you been able to preach defending without fouling?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we do consistently. We want that to be part of our identity. I know, the aggression, I think, around the league is probably increasing, especially as you get to playoff time. Things get a little bit more physical, and there's less fouls called. And so we're trying to teach our guys to have a level of physicality, but especially when it comes to shooting fouls, not allowing people to get to the free throw line, to see it go in, to get a rhythm. It's also us trying to be a little bit mindful of not letting them get to the bonus. And so you just want to be tactical. And there's those moments where the physicality, we're trying to steer into a pick and roll situation, and if you get a couple of those, you get a couple. But how do we have the recognition of, okay, they are in the bonus now, so we got to be a little bit more mindful of our steers, or staying down on pump fakes. So a ton of drill work, a ton of film work, a ton of conversation. They probably get tired of hearing me say defend without fouling, and it just becomes part of their natural defensive instincts.
Going off that question a little bit, defending without fouling, you talked about film work. Could you mention how important it is to kind of beat the offensive players to the spot sometimes, and that can lead to not fouling on those possessions as well?
Yeah, no, for sure. We do talk a ton about tendencies, to your point, and so if we can figure out, how are some guys getting fouled, try to send our guys clips of that, try to talk about it, especially pregame. Make sure you add something in there. Middleton, for example, I know he's out tonight, but pump fake guy. In a pick and roll situation, when you close the gap, and he'll quick stop in a pick and roll, and so trying to educate our guys as much as possible. Days that we have shoot around, how do you actually try to implement that? And it can get a little silly at times when our video guys or our coaches are trying to emulate the other players and how they get fouled. But I think it plants a really good seed, and they start to understand what is the technique, what's the mindset going into beating guys to the spot, or having that discipline to just stay down on pump fakes, or, we want you to shift, but you got to be mindful. Harden's going to try to do the low sweep through, and so your shift has got to be there early. You can't swipe down. It's just, again, the education and the reps.
You talk about the decision to upgrade Brandon Miller and Ryan Kalkbrenner tonight.
Yeah, they came in this morning. They're continuing to get evaluated, go through their pregame routines and stuff, and it sounds like, they kind of just showed up feeling a little bit better. So we'll continue to see how they go through their warm-ups and evaluate them there.
The numbers with the starters are pretty ridiculous. Everybody's starting to take notice, plus, minus, net rating, all of the numbers. What is it about that group that makes them so special with the way they've been playing recently?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. The first thing that I kind of go to, though, is the relationship that whole group has. I've talked about it a ton. Our group just continues to grow a little bit closer. I feel like the communication level is getting a lot better, but they understand what they need from each other, and they set standards for what they want from each other. And so defensively, I think that they bring a great energy. Having Musa out there a lot of times allows us to switch, which early on allows us to bring a level of physicality. It keeps things pretty clean. You're not allowing the defense sometimes in center field to get downhill and get into the paint. I also thought just last game they just cover for each other so well. The energy level there, and then that defensive energy kind of carries over into our offense. And with Musa playing as fast as he does, and he's sprinting the floor and creating this magnets and creating open shots, it just brings an energy and a competitiveness to our group early in the game.
I know the mellow minutes restrictions kind of limits this to some degree, especially on back-to-backs. But when you're looking at that and you see the numbers and how well they're playing, do you look at that trying to maximize more time out there for everybody, or is it this is the volume that allows them to be so efficient? How do you measure that and balance all of it?
Yeah, it's a lot to balance, especially like you said on the back-to-backs. But ultimately, I just have to be mindful of as much as I want them all to play together, I just have to also be mindful of how are we going to maximize their availability and what makes sense for the flow of the game. So, we will continue to get creative and study as much as we possibly can, because to your point, when they get to play together, they're really good. But we also have to be prepared for them to play with different people, and that's the flexibility, the open-mindedness of our group is important to continue to grow.
Coach, with the earlier start time, just don't know how many people are going to be in Spectrum Center today. Obviously, a lot of players were not here during the COVID when there was nobody in the arena. What do you remember about some of the challenges that you face in terms of being able to hear stuff that maybe you don't want the other team to hear?
One of the things that you just kind of mentioned is just you have to find a way to bring your own energy, and it's an individual mindset yourself, but then also as a group. How are we going to continue to uplift each other, give the guy next to you enough energy, because it becomes contagious. And like you said, sometimes the people aren't in the stands to do that. I also remember during those times of COVID, they pumped in more music, they pumped in more crowd noise to make it feel like there was a sense of a crowd or an atmosphere there. So the biggest thing is just on us. We have to bring that energy, and when it comes to communication, if they can hear what play calls we're making, it's all good. We all just got to make sure we're on the same page.